Welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We are here with Beate Chelette. She is the growth architect. She was a single mom who was $135,000 in debt. She had to crack the new business code. She sold a business to Bill Gates for millions. And we are going to talk today about showing up, about failing more, about why failing is good for you, and how you can get to where you need to go. Glad to be talking to you today.
I'm excited to be here, Robert. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So if someone is just now tuning into this podcast episode, which they are, and they say, who is this person? Why the heck should I even care at all? Why should I not just close the podcast right now? Give me something interesting. Why should we continue listening?
Oh, that would be a horrible mistake if somebody would just not listen right now. So my story is, really the single mom immigrant originally from Germany who made a lot of really great mistakes, figured out how to get herself in $135,000 in debt, had to then figure out how was it going to feed my kid, be a successful business owner. And I always say, and then I cracked the code and then I sold it for millions of dollars to no other than Bill Gates. So that's why you want to listen, because if you want some shortcuts, blueprints, ideas, and what exactly it is that you need to do to turn it around when the deck is so stacked against you, you're at the right spot.
Well, fantastic. Well, I love blueprints. I love ideas. I love strategies and everything that goes along with it. So can you tell us what the heck was a business that's so good that even Bill Gates wants it? It seems like he has everything. He can just get whatever he wants. So what did you create for Bill Gates?
Yeah, see, you'll actually never guess this because Bill Gates was at the time in a big buying frenzy with another competitor called Getty. And they were buying up all these stock photography image syndications. And stock photography is, when you now go to a site and you are illustrating your blog or your website with photos of people that are, all happy and fake smiling and having a grand time. So we were specialized in architecture, interior, and celebrity homes. And because we had been one of the very, very few companies in the world that had figured out how to do celebrity at home stories, that's what attracted the attention. And while I didn't invent the celebrity at home story, I did make it a worldwide phenomenon and eventually turned it into a company that sold into 79 countries in the world. And we were the industry leader in that category. And he wanted to grow a particular business that he had bought and couldn't grow it. And so this was the natural extension. So it was just like when opportunity and being prepared kind of comes together in this magic moment, and you're at the right place at the right time with the right offer.
And I love that because you always hear about these huge business people and they're known for like one or two things, but they have so much going on behind the scenes. They have all these other businesses, or they might have a call center or some office. And so to me, you think that, okay, it's easy to go for the obvious and to say, well, Mark Zuckerberg invented Facebook, so maybe I should invent Facebook. But there's so many niche specialized websites out there that make money, that people want, that people buy. There's so much happening behind the scenes that we don't see going on. So that's really refreshing that even if we have some really specific niche, even crazy idea, that it can still work, it can still make money. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that's mass appeal to anyone and everyone. And so you and I are talking about this idea of failure. So was this this big success, was this the first business that you created that you racked up this debt to build, or was this like business like 7 or 8?
No. So, that's actually a really good question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. What number business was it that you screwed up? So the first one was a photographer representation business. And then I started to do still photography productions. I've always been in the creative arts. And I just happened to be better at the business side behind it. And so then the photographer representation fell apart because I had the bad employee that got too close to my key vendor, and they came up with this idea on how to run my business just without me. And that ended up in a big lawsuit. And then I'm in this big lawsuit, but I have this juicy production season scheduled, and it's Levi Strauss and it's Wrangler and it's Mercedes-Benz and BMW and all these jobs on the books. And then September 11th comes and in 24 hours, I get wiped out. And so this business was, if you so want to, the third one that was born out of this idea of what can I do now that makes and creates equity without me constantly having to be there. And that's how I ended up with that. And once you like lose your shirt in some of these things that you've done, believe me, you're very different in the way you set up your business and what the business needs to do and how it needs to provide for you, because you cannot ever have this happen to you again, ever.
And you said in there that you've gone through all kinds of difficulties, and I'm sure really stressful events. And you said in there something about like you do business a lot better than the average person, that you set up a lot of things correctly, you do a lot of things right. So what would you say sets you apart from a lot of other people out there? Like, what makes you so good at business and what you do?
So number one, I've created something that's called the 5-Star Success Blueprint. So I literally been participating and happily so in building, tens of thousands of businesses. And what I find is that people get so caught up in like a detail here or there, or they don't understand that there's a whole pathway on how you need to go, right? Like you start at the bottom of the mountain, you pack up your gear, you get your water, you get your food, you put your hiking boots on, you prepare for everything along the way, and then you start going. And there's a bunch of different ways you can go. So you kind of need to know where you want to get to, because you might need to change the path, but you know where the end goal is. And so there are a couple of things about this. So number one, the way I set up my businesses is that I rather have 10 people that work 5 hours a week for me versus one person that works 40, because it reduces the risk of you being in business, and it gives you the ability to scale up pretty quickly. I find that the number one mistakes entrepreneurs always make is they try to do mini-me cloning, and they find somebody who's just like them, who can do just as much as they do. And then they give this one person everything. And then this person goes like, great, now you taught me how to do your business. They go and they do that. And then the business owner starts from zero all over again. So please don't do that. Number two is sometimes you get caught up into, especially with the social media, where people say, well, I need to be an influencer. And I'm going, what are you influencing? Well, a lot of people make a lot of money on social media. I said, yeah, but what are you selling? Well, if I'm an influencer, I can sell anything. I said, well, that's not really the way this works. You kind of got to flush out what it is that you're doing first, and not hope that winning the lottery somehow is a valid business strategy. Hint, it's not. So you want to go and take these steps as I outline them in the 5-Star Success Blueprint, step by step by step by step, because that way you don't miss anything. You're covering your bases and you're setting yourself up to grow, build, and scale.
So there's a lot of things to think about there. And I like your visual of climbing the mountain. And as you were saying that, what was going through my head is just this idea of, here's the dot up here at the top of the mountain where you want to get to, and it won't be a straight line, and you might have to take some detours and do this or that, or stop or rest for a while. And so even if you get blocked along the way, as long as you get there, that's still the point. And so that was a cool visual. I feel like I need to bust out a pen and paper and draw that. And then you're mentioning that in order to scale, it's more important, instead of cloning yourself, to figure out what the pieces of you are, and then hire people to fill in the pieces in some way. Because if you think about it, yeah, like if you had a clone of yourself and you said, hey, clone, do everything that I want to do. Well, you yourself don't feel like doing it forever. So why would your clone do that? And also this idea of, okay, instead of just pursuing the dream of just money or just being an influencer and hoping that things will work out, figure out exactly what to sell. And, you make me think about, even like when you see famous YouTubers or influencers and they have sponsors and things like that, I've noticed usually they have one big sponsor. They have their big client or their big whale, their kind of go-to, and then they have lots of other little, sponsors and things like that they promote. But usually, like, I'm thinking about, like, I think Tim Ferriss always mentions like something called Wealthfront. I have no idea what it is, but then that's like his go-to big thing. And so yeah, that's a lot to think about, as far as maybe the things that we've noticed from successful business people, from influencers, maybe does not 100% match up with what they're really making money with and what they're really doing behind the scenes. And so there's a lot to think about as far as the things that we need to be taking action on and focusing on. And so you sold this this stock photography celebrity home business to Bill Gates. And then what did you do? What was the next step after that?
Well, and then they hired me to become their senior director of global entertainment. And that's when really the journey begins all over again. And as I'm working in there, Robert, I'm finding out that the way business is being set up really sucks. That, these inflexible structures and systems of corporate America, it's just like dreadful. I mean, so I'm in there and I'm finding out that how women are being treated in the system, how minorities are being treated in the system, how anybody who's non-conforming is being treated. So they bring you in, they say, you're so amazing, you're so amazing. And then that's the first thing they try to beat out of you by saying, like, now we're forcing you in the structure. This is exactly what you have to do. This is how you have to do it. And no wonder that people are so fed up with working for the man, basically. And after that, after I did that for about a year, I said, screw this, I'm gonna fix it. And that's when I quit and I started working on this idea of this new business code on how do we need to change the structure that it changes the way we want to feel when we are in it. And what I found in the beginning when I was working on it, I created something called the Women's Code, because I felt that women were horrible to each other in organizations, just like, I mean, terrible, backstabbing, bitches, miserable. And I was like, I don't think this is going to be helpful if we ever want to get to equality and have equal opportunity for everybody. So the Women's Code's about teaching women how to be in charge of ourselves and how to get along and how to have a code amongst women, which women really, truly do not have, certainly not when it comes to work. And then as, the events now over the last couple of years kind of took a life on its own, I found out that the system and the structure doesn't work for men either. And that men are just as unhappy, especially Gen Z and millennials, hate being in corporate America. And this all about money and being a number in the machine. They don't care about free beer Fridays anymore. They don't care about the ping pong table. They want to have a sense of belonging and purpose and enjoyment of feeling like they're working towards something bigger that's beneficial for everyone. And so that's really what I've been working on, this new business code. How do we change the structure? How do we raise the awareness that as we are going into business, and whether as entrepreneurs or while we working for someone else, that we have a greater joy, sense of belonging, and feeling like we're really contributing to the world, because people are miserable.
I mean, you hear about this more and more these days about how the norm in 60s, 70s, 80s was you figure out your career, you get one employer, hopefully you just stay with that one and you ride it out and you stick it out and you get to retirement. And then at some point along the way, when you hear about the idea of like a serial entrepreneur or a freelancer or someone that lives like a nomadic kind of lifestyle and going place to place and getting different clients, like at first that seemed like a weird concept, right? It seemed like maybe you were like a rebel or someone who like didn't quite fit in or was not a team player. But the more and more you hear about this, especially when you're getting into remote work and like things in the cloud and all those things of that nature, you just hear more about how like the tide is turning. And what you're talking about here of throwing out a lot of those old corporate America norms and having this new set of rules, I think that it's very much needed. And so can you unpack a little bit about this new business code? And maybe, I know there's not enough time to go into all of it, but can you tell us about like some of the pieces, the buckets, so we get an idea of what's in this code?
Yes, absolutely. So in essence, it's based upon a very simple notion. And it is that we have really misappropriated the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's created cancel culture as a result. Because if you now show up and you are not saying the right thing to the right person that's sensitive enough, and I have a client who is a photographer, and when he was describing the kind of makeup a particular skin type should be using, he was called into HR from this company and told him he had to actually change the wording because somebody who had oily skin or yellow tintish skin would be possibly sensitive to that and it could be considered racist. I mean, this is how far we've gone now, is that you can't even tell people what makeup to use for their skin type. And I look at this and I say, the entire idea of working together is built on what? It's built up on strength. It's like you and I, we're sitting here, we're having an interview. We're doing this because you're doing something that I find interesting. I'm doing something you find interesting. And now we are sharing our opinions, but neither am I trying to convince you, nor vice versa, right? We're having a conversation about ideas. And, you know, and if I say something stupid, then you go like, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to buy that, but, you know, hey, we'll just leave it there for what it is, right? But there's no need for you to cancel me out because I said something that you disagree with. But that's not the case in what we're seeing now. We're seeing now that it's gotten so far that the judgment of each other for not being perfect has gotten so high that everybody's afraid to speak up or, God forbid, make a comment somewhere about something. So my message is everybody just calm down, because the idea here is that the new business code is about teaching men how women operate. It's about teaching women how men operate. It's about teaching people how non-conforming people operate so that they get some sort of measures of that their idea is only their perception, but it's not the ultimate truth, because 50 people have 50 different experiences. So it's not for me to say, I am Black, I am white, I'm Asian. This is my experience, and you have to relate to every single one of my experience, which is ridiculous. How the heck could I possibly do that? So rather, it is for this new business code to help people to establish a parameter to say, tell me about that. What's that feel like? And then instead of judging, taking it as face value, as an experience that I can learn from or simply store, so that instead of saying, well, that cannot possibly be true that you feel like this, so that if I understand, let's say in broad strokes, how most men operate in business, which is logic, competitive, winning, strategic, persuasive, right? More men in business are like that than women. Not all, of course. Then I look at women and I say, here women, for the most part, most women, not all women, are more empathetic, are more community driven, are able to multitask a lot more, men compartmentalize. So if I take some of these things that are proven in science, where we have, we know that the brains are different, and I take these things and I say, look, there's differences. There's in our nature, in our DNA, there are differences in the way we operate. Why don't we just acknowledge that they exist instead of saying you shouldn't be that way? And then I teach in this new business code how to take advantage of finding whose strength it is to be in which position on a team, so that we can form teams and task force for specific outcomes based upon strength-based innate leadership attributes. And at that point, we'll remove the gender, we remove the sexual orientation, we remove the skin color. Then we only looking at what's the experience and the necessity, that the piece that I need to bring to launching this product to 5 different markets. Who do I need to have on my team? And then I go look and I get Marla and Susie and John and Scott on it, because I know that they're bringing this particular piece that I need to form a complete, whole, new, solid team that's not based on likes and favors, but that's based upon innate strength. That's the whole idea.
Well, I like this a lot. I think that this is very important. Where, as you said, I think that the way that cultural norms are swinging these days, it's crazy. And I think that for a number of years, it was bad in one way, and now it's bad in a different way. So what you're saying is we need to acknowledge these strengths and weaknesses, and instead of trying to turn people into something they're not, find the right fit for them to be on that team, to get the business working the way that it should be working. And so if people listening are excited and energized and super jazzed up about what you have going on, they want to know more about this business code, they want to know more about you and your business, what's the next step here? What are some resources? Where should we go?
Well, the first step I would encourage everyone to do is go to airtightavatar.com. So in this 5-star success blueprint, one of the foundational steps is you got to figure out who you're selling to. So I provide how can you find out what the avatar of your really, really good client is in this masterclass free program that I provide for everyone. Just go to airtightavatar.com, sign up for it. You'll get the guide. It's pages and pages. You just check mark it. It's kind of like done for you with a couple of videos. And then you'll know who you should be selling to, number one. Number two, I want to remind all your listeners, Robert, that the reason you and I are doing this is because we live by your feedback. So reach out, leave a comment for the show, or reach out to me personally at bc@beatechelette.com. I do check my own email, and let us know what you're taking away, what resonated. And check out my resources on my website. Join my group on Facebook. It's called My Entrepreneur Forum. And reach out, and I'll be happy to help any way I can to get you to create the business that supports you the way you want to be supported.
Fantastic. That is My Entrepreneur Forum. And you know what, Beate, you bring up a good point that so many people are just too passive as far as they're learning and they're listening. You and I here, we're real people. We have these podcast interviews happening. So it's such a good idea for anyone. If something that you said resonates with them, they should go and leave that feedback. They should go and contact you. They should visit those websites, because otherwise you're just taking in information and kind of nodding and saying, oh, that sounds nice, and moving on to the next thing. You might as well be watching TV. It's kind of a waste. So if something helps, it's so important to go and leave that feedback. And so to make sure that we have that web address for that avatar tool, can you tell us what that is one more time? So I didn't quite catch it.
It's airtightavatar.com.
airtightavatar.com. Well, fantastic. And we will see you there, and we will see you in the Facebook group. And make sure to also send that email to give your feedback. And as we wrap up, wind down our conversation today, do you have any final parting words just to give us all something like a sentence or two to really chew on and think about for the rest of the day or the week? Something really good and powerful. Anything come to mind?
Yes. Look at failure as a road sign that just tells you, please don't go this way, instead of throwing a temper tantrum and throwing yourself on the ground and crying over why this way doesn't work. But look at it as a sign from Spirit, God, the universe, that they want you not to go there, so you can save yourself a lot of time and money and find the right way to go that. Because that's the number one thing I see, is that a lot of especially new entrepreneurs get completely hung up because something didn't work. Fail faster.